Welcome back
to Marriage Beyond the Veil.
I have a question for you. No, this one really is.
Okay.
No, this one's. It's not easy, but it's a good question because you guys have been married for 30 some odd years.
34.
I know, and I can't. It's not sticking in my head.
Okay.
Because I'm really not that old. And that would be dating me because I'm your twin. Right. But anyway, so the question is, you know, after you got married, had your children, you know, was there ever a time, you know, after that, because life happens and living and raising kids is a lot, did you ever question the commitment of the relationship that, you know, were you guys, you know, fully committed in this together the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Several times.
Okay, so what age and like how long were you married the first time, if you can remember, or round ballpark figure, like?
So the first time we had been married less than 5 years.
Oh. Okay.
And the second time, we've been married less than 30 years.
So clearly you guys are still married. So how did you weather the first one, and if, you know, what made you feel that way?
Well, I mean,
this was
no, it wasn't. I didn't have postpartum because I think John was 2. But the challenge was it was a transition in our lifestyle, and so when Fred first got into the ministry and doing ministry things, he goes in with everything. You can speak to this with both feet, arms, legs, everything, whole body committed 100%. And I had a small child. And I felt like he was more committed to this ministry and the way that the ministry needed to run, and how that was growing. And, you know, and it wasn't like we had our own. We were in a large ministry. But, you know, anytime somebody called, he was gone. Anytime somebody needed help, he was gone. And then there were other people, other ministers and they've always relied on him for sage advice. And so they would call, and he'd be on the phone for hours. Man, I got a toddler running around the house driving me nuts. You know, and I just felt like, okay, well, if that's, you know, you now traded us for that. But in his defense, I had pulled back away from him.
Okay.
You know, and so it wasn't, and so yes, I questioned the commitment. The other time was, again, when we were dealing with some ministry issues, but, you know, since then have come to understand that there was a whole lot more going on in terms of mentally what was really at the crux of what the decisions that were being made. Okay. And were we being, I know we had really good communication, but I think there was a breakdown.
Okay.
And in both cases, there was a breakdown. But we were able to talk it out, and that's why we're still married 34 years later.
So did you seek wise counsel from your community?
Well, one time my community was Mom, and I called her, "Yeah, Mom." No.
Yeah, she's real simple.
Yeah, so that was the one.
One time I asked Dad, could I come home, and he was like, "No."
That was the advice from her was no, stick it out. You're okay. You know, he's a good guy. Blah 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 blah. The other time, I had to go to therapy and work myself through it, and I had to pull myself up by the bootstraps because by this time I had 2 kids. I had a business. There was a lot going on financially. Things were not great. And but we had a great community, a community of friends that pitched in and helped. Family, my mom really pitched in and helped. His siblings pitched in and helped. I mean, it really was a time that we were really going through some stuff, and they just that community just sort of supported us through it. So, but I knew I never, in that second time, I never doubted his commitment to us as in a couple. I just felt lonely, and I felt left, and I felt abandoned.
Did you guys talk every day? What things
every day.
You did?
Talked every day, prayed every day, did all of that. But I promise you, when I was feeling at my lowest, it didn't matter. Okay. You know, and so there was so much going on. And I mean, I know you know, remember most of it, but I mean, it was a rough time.
Yeah.
You know, but we fought through it, and I remember. You talk about hiking. I remember we went to the park and walked for almost 3 hours. And I said, "Can we sit down, please?" Because I can walk for hours.
Yes, you can.
And he was like, "Can we sit down?" So we sat down and we talked. But, you know, we needed to have that conversation. And that was communication was what brought that back in. And yeah, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, if you are feeling a little disconnected, wondering about that commitment, talk it out. And if your feet can take it, walk it out. Until tomorrow.
If the Lord says the same.
Good night.
Have a good evening.